Well, Waterbury, we're so glad that you're here this morning. It's a wonderful, beautiful, God-ordained day on the outside of there. But you know, the day is really in our hearts. The day that God really gets glory from. The Bible even speaks about it, that light of God. It dwells within us. So it doesn't really matter whether the sun is shining, doesn't really matter whether the clouds are out, it's shining in our hearts. But I'm looking out at all the beautiful people, and you are beautiful. I want you to know that you ought to say like David, that it doesn't really matter what you feel about me, think about me, how you size me up. I am, as David said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That I am a child of God, studying the Word of God, moving progressively to the place of God. And that's a good thing. I want to speak into my heart and your heart this morning on this always relevant, practical, direly needed message on the resurrection. I want to confess, I want to acknowledge, and maybe all preachers can be honest about it, or teachers, or counselors, disciplers. Sometimes you really wonder if, in fact, that you have selected the right Bible verse, the right topic, the right subject. It's a burden that you have. And it's real, it's palpable. But don't ever doubt when you talk to yourself and talk to people about the resurrection, you're on point. You're on target. You're in the epic center of what the real need is. The church has three missional. Mission goes to what the church always does all the time. Method, strategies, means sometimes change, but mission is what the church always does all the time. And the church has three foundational, missional ministries. We call them education, edification, and evangelism. Those three, that trifecta, is what's helping you be the man and woman that you are, growing to be better every day and headed for destiny, because you have brought your life under education, what you know, edification, what you ought to be, and evangelism, what you want to do. But everything begins with education, knowing. It's knowing, being, and doing in that order. So when we talk about resurrection education, we're talking about where the mission of God begins, education, and stays there, that produces edification and evangelism. They grow out of education. And we're talking about the mainline topic of our education, and that is the resurrection. So I want to speak to your heart and my heart this morning on getting a biblically sound, not some ideology, not some opinion, not some pieced together kind of concept, but Bible-based, biblically sound resurrection education. Is born out of the 24th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. Let me share with you what this sermon on the resurrection is about. Let's talk just a minute on this. The clock is ticking. First of all, the Christian life. That's what you are seeking to live. We call ourselves Christians. Christ following, Christ obeying folk. Christian life is completely centered around how much Bible truth we have in our minds and hearts about the resurrection of Jesus. I don't know if you really are convicted on that. Don't mean to insult you, but sometimes we study so many other things, and somehow resurrection becomes kind of like on the peripheral of what we teach. That's not right. That's not Bible. The whole Gospels are centered on the resurrection, and the epistles, every word, every dot and tittle is inspired by the resurrection. So that this sermon says, this lesson is that this life of Christ has to be centered around how much. Now we're talking about quantity. We could talk about the quality of the teaching, but let's just talk about the volume. How much Bible knowledge you have in your heart and mind about resurrection. Have you put any verses to memory? Have you put any verses underlined in your Bible? Is any verse on the resurrection a part of your conscious mind because it is so deeply ingrained in you? But the sermon also raises the question: is the Christian life will not work. Come on, say that in your spirit. It will not work, cannot work, when the knowledge and our focus on the resurrection of Christ is inadequate and insufficient in real life moments. Notice a lot of verbosity there, but resurrection is a theology. It's a teaching, but it is not an abstract. It's something that you embody and bring into real life moments. Tragically, and I confess, it's a part of my erroneous approach at times, that I can believe that it's the giftedness and the sagacity and the acumen of a good sermon, irregardless of what the topic is, that grows churches. That you can believe that it's the depth of our programs and our organizational structure that helps people get to a better place in life. You can believe that. How even loving we are, how caring we are, how friendly we are. But none of that matters apart from resurrection. Everything comes beneath the umbrella that Jesus was raised. This sermon really wants to drive that home. Sometimes it's forgotten. Not always intentionally or maliciously, but we get caught up into our own kind of churchanity, built on a certain type of comfortable teachings and even programs. Somehow the resurrection kind of gets pushed off into, we call it a deeper study. It may be deep, but it's basic. It's what Christianity has to keep coming back to time and time again. The sermon also says that empowered Christianity, that's what you want, not weak, but empowered Christianity and victorious Christianity is lived out, listen, by Christians who are blessed to have a biblically sound resurrection education. I want you to think about this with me. I want you to think about something that's going to happen today. Somewhere, somebody, somewhere, somebody is going to be saved. I have no doubt about that. God is that powerful. The Spirit of God is that influential. Today, with no more delay, it's not going to be any more delay. Somebody is going to be delivered from a it's been fierce and it's ferocious spiritual battle that they have been fighting too long. Some stronghold, some addiction, some habit, some secret sin. Been fighting with it. But today is the day that they are going to be delivered from that. Today, there's going to be a spirit of bondage and enslavement completely broken. Somewhere, it's going to happen somewhere. And I say today, right today, prayers are going to be answered, lives changed, hope fully restored. Here is the because. The person, Jesus Christ, and the promises and the power of God that he has ordained for those who have sound base resurrection education is going to bring that about. Somebody. It's all centered around the resurrection. Every bit of it. Now, Brother Stan, one of our elders, put into my hands a book this past Wednesday. It's a great read titled Seeing the Unseen. You may be familiar with that. It's in our library, Preparing Yourself for Spiritual Warfare. And he has a section in here that says, what is this thing called faith? You can read it with me. Defining faith is simple. Now, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. But he says it's not defining faith that's difficult, it's living by it. That's true. Faith believes that God keeps his word and rewards those who are his. Your faith, he says, will revive, strengthen, and sustain you. And when you trust God's testimony, you live by faith. But faith in God, but practically speaking, strategically speaking, faith in the power of God through the resurrection. So I want to bring us to this chapter in Luke. Now we come across these disciples, nameless, obscure, anonymous. But they are disciples. They're not unchurched folks, as we would say, not pagans, but people who know God, people who knew Jesus, up close and personal, grounded in the scriptures. But they are caught up in a moment post-resurrection, not before, but post after resurrection, but they are blind to the reality of it. And so Luke says, two of them were traveling that same day to a village called Emmaus, and they talked together of all these things which had happened while they conversed and reasoned. These are the things immediately connected with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The resurrection, the crucifixion, the gore. We preached about that, taught about it Wednesday. The blood. Jesus, bloody, beaten, battered, disfigured, innocent, but tried as a criminal, mocked and despised, dead, buried, but resurrected. That's reality. But they're not really focused on Sunday morning. They're focused on Friday and Saturday. And they can't grapple with the Jesus who seems to be gone and no more. But their eyes, Jesus drew near, the risen Jesus with them, but their eyes were restrained so that they did not know him. And he said to them, what kind of conversation is this? As you walk and are sad, what are you talking about? Why are you even talking like you're talking? Cleopas answered, this is really interesting. This is really good. This is rich. I mean, man, he wish he could take this one back. Are you only a stranger in Jerusalem? I mean, where you come from anyway? Who are you? Where did you come from? And have you not known the things which happen there these days? You talk about foot in mouth. He's up in there, right? But wait a minute. Before we get so down on them, sometimes we can live post-resurrection as if Jesus is still in the tomb. It doesn't really impact me, doesn't really change me, doesn't save me, doesn't renew my spirit and reverse the course of my life. But I want you to take this home with you. Living blind to the resurrection, 2 points I want you to think about. Resurrection knowledge is the highest knowledge about Jesus Christ that we need to know and hold on to. Resurrection knowledge. That's the knowledge that saves. You can talk about the miracles of Jesus. You can talk about the omniscience of Jesus. You can speak about the profundity of the preaching and teaching of Jesus. You can even speak about the power and even the love. But if you've got all of that knowledge, somebody needs to hear this. But I don't have saving knowledge of the resurrection and holding on to that, then I'm not in a good place. But there's a second point here. That this biblical knowledge must be, I know this, it must be reread and reaffirmed over and over again in uncertain cycles of life. You come back to resurrection. You come back to that. Whatever is happening, whatever I'm going through, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get through this. This too shall pass. Because Jesus, my Lord, my Savior, come on, is risen from the dead. That sometimes God says to you, it's all you really know and need to know. But let's go deeper here. Living hopeless in spite of the reality of the resurrection. Living blind, now living hopeless. And he said, what things? And the things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and crucified him. Notice the period. He's gone. But this is what they say. We were hoping. You feel that? Not we are full of hope. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all of this, today is the third day since this happened. Well, if you knew the scriptures, he said, this is the day. And yet they are living hopeless to that. Living hopeless in spite of the resurrection. Nothing is more unnecessary. Get this now, unnecessary is what you don't have to go through. Doesn't help anything. Than the believer to give in to a spirit of hopelessness after the resurrection. When is the last time you heard somebody say, man, it's hopeless? And you pulled out some resurrection verses and said, hey, read this. Think about this. Pray this. Come on, I know what I'm talking about. And I must confess, my brother, that sometimes I minister to people. I visit, I call, I contact, I call myself helping, and I share this word, that word, show love. Maybe reach in the pocket and help out and pray. And you know what God says when you leave? Man, you missed the main thing. You didn't talk about resurrection, did you? Why didn't you not speak about the risen Lord? How come you didn't tell them that it doesn't really matter if their bodies are racked with pain and sick? Doesn't really matter if the doctor's prognosis is correct. Doesn't really matter if they're not necessarily in their best mind or with the best strength. That there is a person and promises and provisions and power in resurrection that's going to fix everything. And you failed on that mission. I wish sometimes, my brother, that God would just send me right back in real time. And, I forgot something. I'm going to share with you some verses on the resurrection. God says, now we're talking. This is what it's about. Hopelessness cannot thrive and survive when we know for sure what Jesus accomplished in his resurrection. So my sister, I've got to ask somebody who's down and out, who's depressed, despondent, despairing, that have you talked to the preacher? See, that sometime we'll be, have you talked to the elders? Have you? No. Ask them, what do you believe about resurrection? And that question sometimes is not even mentioned. It's omitted, left out. Let's go a bit further in this. Living exposed to the proclamation of the reality of the record. Now there is real evidence, factual, actual, that Jesus is raised on this Sunday. Yes, and certain women of our company who arrived at the tomb early astonished us when they did not find his body. They came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels and who said that he was alive. Then what are you talking about anyway? What's up with that? And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him. But they're sad and despondent. Tragically now, I know this, talking to me as well as you, that we can live exposed to the truth of the resurrection, but it still not impact us. So let's embrace these 2 points. Resurrection knowledge has to mean something in the deep, dark, difficult moments. It's got to mean something. Has to mean something. Listen. There's somebody on the corner, somebody in the hood, somebody in the suburbs, somebody in Atlanta, we call it Bankhead and Buckhead. Those are 2 extremes. Life is cheap in both places. But somebody has to know But you know, but they don't know it. But how can you know it and still deal with it like they deal with it and they don't know it? You know God is going to fix this thing because Jesus is raised. You know that you're going to be okay because you serve a risen Lord. You know that everything is going to work out. In fact, it's already done. You just have to wait on it because Jesus was raised. But they're not really impacted by even the testimony of these women. Resurrection knowledge provides the truth that is needed when facing satanic lies about our situation. I need to know when the devil is speaking lies about me. And sometimes I don't mean just the devil, with the whatever, the pitchfork in the bread. I'm talking about folks, who come as embassies of the devil. You'll never be anything better than what you are. Lie. This is probably not going to be fixed. Lie. You probably have to just accept this for the rest of your life. Potentially lie. And I have to stand up and stand tall and just quote resurrection verses. Just quote it. Just keep it in the airways there. Living fully aligned to the reality of the resurrection as we pull it together. Then he said to them, he brings it to a climax. Oh, foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone further. He challenged them, as I want to challenge you as we bring it to a close. You see, church, I've got some things I'm having to grapple with right now. You do too. Things are not always as they appear to be. Somebody in your family who loves the Lord is going through something. A wife who loves Jesus is having to deal with something. An old sister who has walked with Jesus is having to grapple with something. A brother who's really a good teacher, preacher, is going through something. Pastor, even a young person who is really trying to establish a relationship with Jesus is going through something. But listen, we must allow God to confront and rebuke our inner spirit when we are not empowered and encouraged by the resurrection. You got to let God tell you that's some bad thinking. That's some messed up thinking. For you to know what you know and feel what you feel about your future. I got to let God in confront that, expose that, call it out for what it is. Resurrection reality, no. It's God's solution for everything. Go home. You probably not do it tonight. Maybe you'll do it this week. Write down your biggest problems. Write down your biggest problem. Write down the first 5. List them one by one. And on top of that, not on a separate sheet, not alongside of it, right on top of your, I wish you'd do this. Write in big letters, resurrection fixes it. And hang that where you can see it and pray to God about it. And God says, if you're going to trust me like that, then I'm going to do some stuff like this. But you say, I ain't got time for that. That's the problem. But they constrained him, abide with us, which toward evening, the day is far spent. And he went into stay with them. Now it came to pass as he sat at the table with them that he took bread and blessed and brake it and gave them. Then their eyes were open and they knew him. That was an amazing moment, my brother. Imagine what that was like. He said, wow. And he vanished from their sight. And they said one to another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road and while he opened up the scriptures to us? So they arose up that very hour and turned returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, oh, this is what you ought to say. This is what you ought to say right in the middle of your mess. Middle of your pain and your anguish, right in the middle of your loneliness, right in the middle of whatever you're going through. You got to speak it into the airways. You got to keep speaking it. You got to say it. You got to say it over and over again. The Lord is risen indeed and has appeared to Simon. And they told about the things that has happened on the road and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. You got to tell that teenager who says, man, I'll never be happy again in my life. I'm not hating, we've been there. I won't make it. You got to tell them, I know you feel like that, but Jesus is raised, boy. Jesus is raised, my daughter. You got to tell that person who somehow believes that I've been hurt, church hurt, and I don't really need the church anymore. I don't really need people. I just don't know what I need anymore. Say, you need a fresh resurrection education. You need to be brought back to the first love that Jesus. So right now, as we offer you this invitation song, as we put it before you on this day that we do, so many celebrate as the day of risen, you need to say in your spirit that, listen, God, I needed this word. I need to know that if there's anything, in fact, God, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to set aside more time. I'm going to cut off the TV a little bit more. I'm going to lay aside that cell phone a little bit more. And don't ask me to drop it all the way, Lord. But I'm going to let it go a little bit more. I'm going to cut off some habits. And you know what I'm going to do, Lord? I'm going to test the power and the provisions and the protections of the person who provides the basis of my resurrection education. And I'm going to look back and see what you're going to do. Our brother is going to come back and offer us this invitation song. And I want you to respond right now. You stand and sing. We'll receive your prayer. We'll teach you the gospel. Whatever is needed, you respond right now.